All right, so I'm Jeannie Rovat, and I am the VP of Unified Leadership for Special Olympics Wisconsin. So welcome to the session, as he said, Gender and Sexual Orientation, Strength Through Knowledge, Growth Through Understanding. So Special Olympics, you know us as a sports program, but we recognize the value of healthy relationships and sexual health for all people. So as a sports program, we have a lot of wraparound services, and one of them is health. And Special Olympics is actually the largest provider of health screenings for people with disabilities in the world. And we offer health program and education in all parts of the body: eyes, ears, smile or teeth, feet, and emotional well-being. But we really haven't done as much with healthy relationships and sexual health for people. And so we are joining together with some other collaborators and working on 9 curriculums, including gender identity and sexual orientation. And the trainers here today have gone through a training session on that, and we're piloting it. So thank you for being our guinea pigs, if you will, for some of this. We recognized as we were working on this that in Special Olympics, we're not necessarily having these conversations at the local level. And part of that can sometimes be because of terminology and certainly just not knowing how to start the conversation. So we want to be clear that we don't claim to be the experts. Instead, we want to bring some resources to help us understand some of the terminology and start the conversation and learn from each other. And during our conversation, depending on how many people are in the room here, we're not quite sure how this is going to work on Zoom as opposed to being in a room with you, but you can share your comments in the chat. If you want to share them privately, I think you can share them with the panel alone. And then also, if we have few enough people, we can maybe do some actually just calling out answers and talking through a discussion that way. So most importantly, we want you to know that regarding this conversation, our goal is to assume a positive intent and create a safe space where we can talk and feel accepted, which allows us to be stronger together, right? Knowledge and being together. So now we'll have our presenters introduce themselves, and then we'll start with Kristy, and then Luke, Megan, and Brittany. You're on mute, Kristy.
My husband wishes I have a mute button on me at home, but you know how that goes. Hi, I'm Kristy Bridenhagen. I'm the Adapted Recreation and Gymnastics Director at the Stevens Point Y, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've been a local program manager for Special Olympics for 17 years. And I've really gotten into this with Jeannie and a lot of the health things. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names and faces up there too. Plus, I'm part of the PINK group from Stevens Point. So those of you that come to a lot of our programs, hi Shannon, I just saw you pop in. I'm part of PINK as well, that if you know us, we're involved in everything. So I will now turn it over to Luke.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lucas Smith. I am an athlete from the Manitowoc County area, and I'm going to be in charge of stuff like the presentation today. And I just want to thank everyone for attending, and I'm looking forward to it.
Megan, you want to go ahead? Megan, we can't hear you. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I couldn't unmute. Hi, my name is Megan Glowich. I am an athlete with Menominee Red Cedo, as well as one of the 2 unified leadership specialists with Special Olympics Wisconsin. And we have me here kind of to just represent the community, as I am bisexual and I'm questioning if I am pansexual.
And Brittany.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Wilson. I am an athlete and athlete leader through Team Milwaukee, agency number 8-42 through Special Olympics Wisconsin in association with Special Olympics International. I had the privilege to help pilot and teach the Healthy Relationships class back in May.
Okay, so
And-
Luke, why don't you pull up the screen for us, and Brittany, you can start us off with some deep breaths.
Okay. So this is a geometric ball. Second breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And then you take the biggest gasp of air you can. Hold there for 5 seconds. And then breathe it out. Today we are going to learn about gender and sexual orientation. Let's get started. Assigned sex is how a person is identified at birth by one's primary sex organ, a penis or a vagina. Gender is how a person feels on the inside in regards to being male, female, or a different gender. You can move on to slide 3, Jeannie. Let's watch a video about gender.
When you share that, you have to click on add audio in the lower left, so we're not hearing it.
Okay, sorry about that. I can do
So
that real
just
quick.
do restart and reshare.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
Color are these pants? Blue?
Okay, I will now start the video.
Oh, not another poll. What now? What color are these pants? Blue or gold? I hate these polls. Why are there always only 2 options? Blue or gold, black or white? It's clear that the third option is the right one. These pants are just ugly.
Is it a boy or a girl? That's often the first question people ask when a baby is born. The response to this question is most often determined by the external genitals of the baby. Most people, including many in the medical community, see only 2 possibilities: girl or boy, female or male. If the medical person who helps deliver the baby sees a penis, the baby is said to be a boy. If they see a vulva, the baby is said to be a girl. Either way, this determination of a baby's gender is called sex assigned at birth. Our sex assigned at birth, sometimes referred to as our gender, is based on how someone else sees our bodies and does not take into consideration how we see ourselves as a whole person. For some people, their sex assigned at birth may be distinctly different from their gender identity. Gender identity is how a person identifies, how they see themselves. One's internal sense of being male, female, both of these, neither of these, or another gender altogether is called gender identity. Most people whose sex assigned at birth is female grow up to identify as female. And most people whose sex assigned at birth is male grow up to identify as male. These people are cisgender. Cisgender is a gender identity used for a person whose sex assigned at birth matches their internal sense of who they are. Some babies are born with external genitals, internal organs, or chromosomes that don't fit the typical definitions of male or female. These babies may have their sex assigned at birth be intersex. As they grow up, these people will still have an internal sense of who they are or a gender identity that they will be able to describe later in life. For some people, their sex assigned at birth, girl or boy, doesn't match their gender identity or their internal sense of who they know themselves to be. Transgender is a gender identity that may be used by a man or woman who was not assigned that gender at birth. Sometimes a person's gender identity, or the way they feel or see themselves, doesn't fall neatly into the binary definitions our society has of female or male. People who feel this way may describe their gender identity as genderqueer, gender fluid, or gender non-binary. People who identify as genderqueer or gender non-binary may express a combination of masculinity and femininity, or neither in their gender expression. While there are many different labels used to describe gender identity, you don't need to label yourself or share your gender identity if you don't want to. You may feel unsure or be uncomfortable sharing this information about yourself with others. Trust yourself to know what words feel right for you and when to share that information with friends and family.
Until next time, don't forget to visit me at Amazing.
After watching the video, is there something you learned, something that surprised you, or something that you still have a question about? Elise?
Looks like there's
Elise Project. Yeah, Elise Project has a question.
You guys are gonna have to unmute them.
Okay.
So her question she put in the chat is, why is it hard for people to accept lesbian and gay people?
For me, it's society. Society always has a problem with accepting things that don't adhere to what they want. And it's like, it's so crazy. It's society. Society thinks that everybody should conform to what they want to be done, except we're all different. If we were to conform to what society's standards are, we won't be able to stand out. We'd end up being just the same as everybody else. Megan and I can be the same, or Lucas and I can be the same. Lucas and Kristy, or Kristy and I, Missy Schoenbrodt and I, or even Jeannie and I. But we were all created different for a reason, and we were all created to stand out. And all I can say is keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, I tell everyone, you just be yourself and keep doing what they're doing. And you can.
I think we're having a little trouble with Brittany's audio. I'm sorry about that, Brittany. Elise, thank you for your question. And I think that's kind of what we're going to learn as we walk through this today, is a little bit more information as we all become a little more aware that might help in how we break down those barriers with other people and talking to them. Is it all right if we go ahead and go on a little bit, and we'll see if we answer your question as we go through? Go ahead, Brittany. Let's see if we can hear you.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about pronouns. Things to think about are, what are gender pronouns? How do we know what someone's pronouns are? What are your preferred pronouns? Gender pronouns are used to refer to a person in regards. I'm sorry. Gender pronouns are used to refer to a person in place of using their name. Some pronouns people include he, she, they, and others. Everyone gets to use their name. Everyone gets to name their own gender identity and pronouns, including changing the name they're used to describe their gender identity. It is important to remember that a person's gender identity and pronouns may change over time, and that's okay. The only way we know someone's gender pronouns is to ask them or if they tell us.
I get it. Okay.
Luke, you want to move forward?
Is it my turn then, Jeannie?
Go ahead.
Okay. So gender expression is how you express yourself to the world. Here, we can see different words people use to describe their gender expression, from feminine to masculine to gender fluid. Here's an activity you can do by yourself or with a support person at any time. The activity is to draw how you express your gender. There may even be other words people use, like butch or femme. Think about how you express yourself to the world. What clothes do you like to wear? Your hair? Your makeup? What do you like? Now we're going to learn about sexual orientation.
We have a question in chat if we can explain what gender fluid is.
Gender.
So when we talk about binary or non-binary, when you talk about binary, something is either one thing or the other. And so in terms of gender, it's male or female. And when you talk about being gender fluid, it's that you don't see things as binary. So it's non-binary. So you don't, just because you're not one, you don't have to be the other, that things can be fluid. And a person who does not identify with a single fixed gender or relating to a person expressing a fluid or unfixed gender. So I think the word fluid is what helps us understand that, is that it's not one thing or the other, it's fluid. And I don't know, Megan, if you have anything else you'd like to add to that.
No, I even get confused with some of the terminology because it's constantly changing too.
Yeah, I mean, gender is still not set in stone, it's something that changes to this day. And gender fluid is just one of the many terminologies that people use. And it just means being a gender that can change over time. So
I think a real simplistic thing that I found and I've used is it's a person who does not identify with a single fixed gender.
Mhm.
okay,
Megan,
but
Megan, would you like to answer the question about pansexual, since that's something you're in
Yeah,
the
just
great process?
yeah. So basically, what pansexual is, without actually pulling up the actual definition, it's basically kind of where you're not drawn to one like type of person, so you're not like drawn to male or female. You could like you might be drawn to someone who's transgender or like gay. So it's like you don't have a preference really of what you like.
Thank you. And I think the only thing I would add for that is that it's someone who is not necessarily drawn to a person because of their sex or their gender.
Mhm.
They're drawn to the individual.
Mhm.
And that's some of the explanation I've seen. I think that's going to come up for us a little bit in a video later. So maybe
Oh.
we can go on with the social
I got
story
a
loop.
question. Oops, sorry. So Jeannie, also you mean that, oh, you would fall in love with their spirit, no matter rather they're male or female.
yes,
So is that what you're saying? You fall in love with their spirit, like you don't care if they're male or female, or
Well, Marquise, you always have a more beautiful way of saying things than I do. That
no? Because I was just asking because I think I understand it. I kind of follow Miley Cyrus, and I wanted to. She said that she was pansexual, and she said rather she falls in love with a man or a woman. She doesn't. It depends on the spirit of the person, that she doesn't care about the gender.
Yep,
Mhm.
personality.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
Okay.
answer, Marquise.
All right,
Okay,
thanks.
that was a great discussion, but now I'm going to discuss about sexual orientation. So sexual orientation describes who a person is attracted to. Some sexual orientations include gay, lesbian, straight, bisexual, asexual, and pansexual, and many others, of course. And all sexual orientations are okay, no matter what anyone says, because it's just who you are as a person. Who you are sexually attracted to may also change over time, or it may stay the same. And everyone is different in relation to their sexual orientation. So now that we've just discussed what sexual orientation is, how about we watch a video about sexual orientation?
I never heard of this band. What kind of music do they do? Rock? So what is it, pop? So they do techno, progressive Balkan with a touch of metal? Never heard of that genre. Sexual orientation describes who you are attracted to, may fall in love with, and may have a sexual relationship with. Everyone has a sexual orientation, and there are different words to describe different sexual orientations. Many people are familiar with terms like heterosexual, gay, lesbian, and bisexual. But those aren't the only sexual orientations out there. For example, some people identify as pansexual, which means they are attracted to people of all genders. Many pansexual people feel that gender has little to do with their attractions. In other words, they are attracted to a person, not to that person's gender. Some people are asexual, sometimes called ace. Asexual people feel little or no sexual attraction to other people and have little or no interest in having sex or engaging in sexual behaviors. Many asexual people still feel romantic attraction. They feel love and affection, but may not feel sexual attraction. Demisexual people only feel sexual attraction when they have a strong romantic or emotional connection with a person.
these are just some of the labels people use to describe their sexual orientation. Some people don't like to use labels at all, and that's okay too. There are many other terms out there to describe the full, diverse spectrum of human beings, and that's a beautiful thing.
Till next time, don't
After watching the video about sexual orientation, is there something that you've learned, something that surprised you, or is there something that you still have a question about?
No, I just learned that I don't know if it's because of my disability, but at different times I felt asexual and then heterosexual again. Like it was a time where I thought that I had no sexual attraction and I like wanted to like join a monastery and like be a monk. And so I don't know. It's just I realized that I have different human emotions. Sometimes, like I was asexual. Now I understand what I was at that time.
Yeah, and I think that's totally okay, Marquise, because we all change over time, and of course our sexual orientation, like previously stated, could always remain the same or change over time. And just because you might have identified as asexual at some point, even if you change later at another point, it's completely okay.
All right, thank you.
Hey Luke, I have a question for you. This is Edward. There's times where I feel I feel gender fluid where I go between a man and a girl. There's sometimes where my girl comes out and then my guy comes back in. So is that a good way of explaining gender fluid?
I'd say that's a pretty good way of describing gender fluid if you're not totally set on what gender you're a part of. That is a
I
pretty good way.
mostly identify as male, but like I said, sometimes my girl comes out.
I think what we're hearing is that the more we talk about this topic and the more we learn about this topic is that we realize that we really do change at different points in our life about how we think about things or what we've learned about type of thing. And the important thing, I think, and going back to Elise's question, is that we continue to accept others at whatever stage they are in their discovery, right? Because sometimes I think that it is more of a discovery than a declaration. Mm-hmm. And what I've witnessed, who I'm close to, who have gone through different, is that they kind of have to re-examine their past, their present, and their future, right? Because they don't know, was it something they had there before and they didn't see it? Or is it something that they just became aware of? And for my daughter in particular, she described it as, I didn't know it, but I was living in black and white, and now I'm living in color, as she discovered her sexuality to be different. And that I thought was a beautiful way to say it, to help me understand as a parent that you can still be happy and living a wonderful life and moving forward, but you may not know your true or your current identity or your true identity, right? So that's the message we want to talk about today, is that it's okay. And even though it's awkward for us to talk about it a little bit because some of us don't know all the terms or don't feel like we know enough, just talking about it, I hope for somebody like Elise, helps the world become more accepting.
There's one thing I would just like to add on. I didn't even think I would bring this up and just listening to everybody, but you're at the self-determination conference where you're self-advocates for yourselves. And maybe I'm asking the people that are on right now, you're learning just as well, but maybe we could all help be better self-advocates or advocates for someone like Elise, for anybody else that's in the group right now. You're learning. Help educate others at the end of this. We're not experts. I'm learning as we're going, but listening to all of you, maybe we could all work together and make this, how the self-determination conference started small, it's bigger now. Maybe this will help educate more people outside of our group here.
I had a question. Sorry. I think with me, I had a question. I wonder. I'm just trying to figure myself out. I'm sorry. I don't know if it's a question. I just was wondering if anyone else like ever felt asexual. Like, I think the reason why I felt that for so long is because I've been, how can I say it, ridiculed for having a disability that I thought that I couldn't bring anything good to a relationship. So I thought that I would be better being asexual. So I was just wondering if anyone else ever felt that way.
So are you saying that your sexuality and how you felt about that was tied specifically to like your self-esteem and who you knew yourself to be?
Right, my
Because of your
disability
disability?
and getting made fun of because of having autism. I thought that I wouldn't be able to find like someone that accept my disability or be able to bring anything good to a relationship.
Yeah, so finding somebody that would accept your disability may also somebody that accepts your gender identity or gender orientation, right? So it's about
Right.
accepting and understanding.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Do you want to move on to the next slide, Luke?
Yeah. I believe it's time for Kristy to take over.
Okay. We're going to think about different scenarios and identities in different settings. For each scenario, think about the different identities we've learned about. There's two options we can do here. You can either put your answer in the chat, or if you'd like to, you can just say what you think your answer would be. The first scenario is a female identifying individual is attracted to other female identifying individuals. What is their sexual orientation? Does anybody want to try and answer? Or you can go in the chat.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Oh, so lesbian.
Okay. Anybody else would like to try? Okay, how about Lucas, if you go ahead and show us the answers. So gay, lesbian, and queer. Our next scenario, an individual is attracted to all people, men, women, transgender, cisgender, non-binary people, gender non-conforming people. What is their sexual orientation?
Wouldn't that be pansexual or non-binary?
Right. Yeah.
Very good, very good. And pansexual and bisexual. And sometimes those terms I've learned, they're used interchangeably, sometimes separate, sometimes together. And I think, Megan, you said earlier that it's ever changing. So it could be this way today and different tomorrow, right?
Right.
Okay, the next scenario. Individual does not identify as male or female and prefers they, them pronouns. What is their gender identity?
Set up an appointment with a
Right. Yes. Non-binary.
And seeing in the chat, yes, it's non-binary. And Lucas, can we see if that's correct? Correct. And then just for this too, an adjective describing a person who does not identify exclusively as a man or woman Non-binary people may identify as being both a man and a woman, somewhere in between, or falling completely outside of these categories. While many also identify as transgender, not all non-binary people do. Non-binary can be used as an umbrella term for agender, bigender, genderqueer, or gender fluid.
We have a question in chat if we can try and explain queer a little more.
Sure, let me,
Hmm.
would anybody else
I
like
think
to?
I think queer, when that mean that you identify as part of the gay and lesbian community. Well, you probably have a better terminology.
No, that's good, Marquise.
That's very
You know,
good, Marquise.
a term people often use to express fluid identity and orientations, often used interchangeably with LGBTQ. And the only personal insight I have with that is that I was with a group that was talking about this topic, and sometimes they felt like using the word queer, if you are not queer, can sometimes be off-putting to those people who are queer, because it's a term that back in an earlier generation, like my generation, was a negative. And now the LGBTQ community has claimed that word and redefined it to empower themselves. And so I don't know, I'm speaking just from personal experience. I'm not an expert on it, but it's one of those things where if you use that word, you have to be you have to be sensitive and careful to the audience with which you're using it, and make sure it's respectful how it's intended to. So it's a little bit more delicate to use that, I think, sometimes.
Right. I like now in society that we have to be more politically correct when we address certain words. Because I mean, sometimes, you know, some words can be hurtful. Like people used to throw the R word around, like we chat about before, and or the N word. And so, yeah, it's nice that I'm glad that, you know, we have to be more politically correct about certain things, because you can hurt people's feelings.
Well, I think we're hearing that in the chat, Marquise. Some people have put down that they have been hurt by those words and how they've been treated. So thank you. All right, Kristy, sorry, I'll let you go.
Okay, another scenario, an individual uses he, him pronouns, but lots of others keep using she, her pronouns with him. What should he do?
This is Elise's question.
I don't know. Oh, you could just ask. He could ask people to to address him by what he feels in his heart. I mean, I think it'll be disrespectful to like call someone a name that they don't like. So if he asks me to identify him by what he feels in his heart, I would do that. I mean, that's all I could do. Just try to be respectful, and if he wants me to identify him by she, her, and hers, then that's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
And then we
Thank you.
do have another question in the chat. If we could explain what LGBTQ means, or explain it so that it's basically the first letter of all the names, so lesbian and gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. And then there's also a plus added. It's basically what is used to sum up that whole type of like community, and or like it's also associated with pride. So like June is Pride Month, so that it's associated with that, so people don't always have to say the same thing, or if it's something for everyone, they can just use the acronym, and that is what it is referring to.
Thank you, Megan. And yeah, one other thing in the chat it says too is everyone should be mindful to the preferred pronouns. And I know it can be difficult as is sometimes when you've just learned that someone is using a different pronoun, you may accidentally call them a he and it should be a she and so on. And that is difficult, but we need to make an effort to really work on that for that person, because ultimately we're humans first, right? And we should really respect humans' choices. That's my little plug for this one. So how about if we go to the next scenario? An individual identified as straight and only dated people who identify as male. Now, the individual also dates people who identify as female. Does she need to publicly change her sexual orientation to bisexual or gay in order to date women?
No. I would say no.
You would say no. Anybody else?
There's a comment in the chat that says she doesn't have to do anything. Laugh out loud.
Right. Well, the only person she needs to share that with is the people, the guy or the woman that she's dating. But I mean, I think like as far as sexual orientation goes, I mean, you only tell people when you want to be respected what your sexual orientation is, but otherwise, what I mean, as far as who he or she is dating, I mean, that's kind of their personal business. As far like I don't think every time you go somewhere, you don't always have to tell people what you identify as either. I don't think it's always appropriate that you have to share it all the time.
You
Now,
know,
if it's like,
I think
oh,
it's one of
sorry.
those, and once again, just with my daughter and watching her as she makes those decisions, is that sometimes she's chosen not to say anything. And then later on, a scenario happens that she feels like she got caught a little bit. Like she's with someone and they ask her out and she feels like, oh, I should have maybe just been upfront that I was gay and that this was just a friendship. So that was hard for her because she cared about that person and she felt like she put him in an awkward position. And so she said to me, you know, I think I'm just going to tell people up front, because as hard as it might be to do that, sometimes it helps me later on. But she has to make those choices. This is the hardest part that I empathize for people who are making these choices is you have to make a choice all day, every day, on whether you tell someone you meet on the street, whether you tell someone at your work, you know, whether you within your school setting or things like that. And there's pressure on people to make those decisions, whether to share or not share. So nobody can make that determination for you, but there's empathy there that you have to, it's something that maybe some of us don't have to address every single day and every single relationship that we have.
I understand that. Like I think like if, you know, if someone's attracted to you and you think you might hurt their feelings, I think, yeah, it's good to be upfront because then they like know where you stand. Like if I wouldn't be upset like if I was attracted to a female and she said, well, you know, I'm attracted to females, and like that wouldn't hurt my feelings at all because, you know, she could still be my friend, and it's other females out there. It's always someone for, you know, for everybody, whether you like male, whether you like female. I believe it's someone for everyone. And like, I can relate to that, like not as far as like the gender part, but as far as like one thing that I was afraid of when dating is like, man, I always felt like bad about having to tell people that I have a disability, especially like, and that's one thing that like I waited so long to date because I'd be like, man, like if my female partner, she might be smarter than me, or I might need her to help me with everything. And that was like a big thing for me. It's like I felt bad, like if a girl was attracted to me, that I always had to tell her that I have a disability. And that's like one thing that I always, I kind of like felt hard in my heart But then my mom and dad would be like, you know, you just got to share with them. And just like the word you used, and my mom said, hopefully they have empathy and they understand your disability.
Okay, so we have that you don't have to tell anybody, or you can if it's your decision, but you do not need to share if you wouldn't want to. Another scenario is an individual wants to meet other people who are LGBTQ and wants a safe online forum they can join. What are some safe online spaces for LGBTQ folks? Is anybody out there that's looking? Do you have a place to go? Because there is one that we have that we will show you, but I was just wondering if there's any forums that any of you know of first. Places certified by the Safe Zone. If you don't know what that is, wait, I've got one in my office. 1 second. I don't know if any of you have seen this before. Is it backwards? Or no, it's good. So any place that's identified as that. But yeah, there's a thing too that unfortunately, you know, even if it is a safe zone, it may not be. So you just have to be careful a little bit. Anybody else?
Can't think of it.
How about Lucas, if you could put up the website that's on there, please. This one is called trevorspace.org. It's a safe online forum run by the Trevor Project for LGBTQ folks to chat, share the resources, and connect. And then, does anybody have any questions about any of these scenarios? And in the chat too, it says one would hope places would fly flags, displaying pride or ally flags.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, someone want to know what I just held up. It's a safe zone. It indicates, for this one I have, it came from UWSP, University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. It says this sign indicates that I have completed a safe zone workshop sponsored by the UWSP Gender and Sexuality Alliance, and that I have pledged to be a positive and supportive ally to the LGBTQ community. Oppressive and prejudiced language will not be tolerated in this space. So that's what it looks like. Oh, I just froze. There we go. So that's what it looks like. Okay. And let's see, 2 other messages. One was that the scenarios were useful to better understand the terms. That it was a great discussion, which I totally agree on. Thank you very much. And then Luke, I think, are we ready?
I was just going to say one other thing too, because this is a pilot and we're doing it, we're just starting to do it. We see the need for it, but we also need help. So if there's other resources or suggestions you have for us, we're really open to listen and to hear ideas. And there you go. Sorry, I'll turn it back over to the team. Luke?
Hey, give me 1 second here. Great job today, everybody. We learned a lot about gender and sexual orientations, and sometimes the way we want to express ourselves to the world can make people feel uncomfortable. It can take courage and bravery to learn and talk about it like we did today. Now we are going to be doing a short poll about what we learned today. I will be reading the statements, and you guys can put in the chat whether you believe it is true or if it is false. Our first scenario is a person's sexual orientation can change throughout time. True or false? I am seeing a lot of trues in the chat. And the correct answer is true. A person's sexual orientation can change throughout time. We of course discussed a lot about that today. And then number 2 is someone's gender can be different than the sex they were assigned with at birth. True or false? Again, seeing a lot of trues. And the correct answer is yes as well. We learned about that in the video that someone's gender can of course be different than when they were assigned at birth. One last time, I just want to thank everyone who participated in today's session. And to close it out, I will turn it over to Brittany to close us out with 5 last deep breaths.
Right. Sure, you learned. God bless you, man. Thank you.
Okay. So with that being said, thank you, Lucas, and thank you all for participating in the gender and sexual orientation session. Let's close it out with 5 deep breaths. You breathe it in, breathe it out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And then you breathe it in last time. Hold it in. And breathe it right out.
I think we're done. So we're at the 2:30 mark. Is there anything else, moderators or translators or anyone that we need to do to close it out? Otherwise, any of the trainers want to say any parting words? Thank you so much for helping us with this conversation, everyone. I learned today, and we will strive to make our presentation stronger and better because of your participation. And we hope to carry this presentation back to our Special Olympics athletes and maybe have it available in the future.